Now, The Hunt Palmer Show.
Yes! I feel like I've been waiting for this my entire life.
You're listening to The Hunt Palmer Show on 104.5 ESPN Baton Rouge.
Jolly good fun. Jolly good.
Locking down the middle of the day.
America's favorite daytime fun show.
Live from the Mercedes-Benz of Baton Rouge studio. This is Hunt Palmer.
Welcome in. Hunt Palmer coming to you from Mercedes-Benz of Baton Rouge studio downtown in the capital city on this Monday. It means we're brought to you by Gulf Coast Office Products. All your printing, scanning, copying needs. Gulf Coast Office Products can help you out. Hope your work week is off to a good start. Jacob Beck and Cassie Spazzali back there on the ones and twos. Fired up that you're here with us for the next couple of hours. Talk to Dr. Jeremy Burnham from Auctioner coming up at 1:45. In the second hour, Connor O'Gara from Saturday Down South will be with us at 2:30. He, over the weekend, well, I saw this over the weekend. I actually don't know when this appearance was. I'll have to go back and look at it. He's kind of feeling like LSU, maybe his national championship pick in college football this coming fall. We'll get Connor's thoughts on all of that at the bottom of hour number 2. So lots and lots to do. Let's crank things up the way we do it every day with our Genesis opening drive.
It's time for Hunt's opening drive, presented by Genesis of Baton Rouge.
Well, when we last left you, LSU had just suffered a crushing defeat on Thursday night. Again, they had a 2-run lead in the 8th inning with their All-American closer on the mound, and South Carolina came back and beat them. And at that point, you're looking at it going, okay, LSU probably needs to go ahead and win these next 2 games. The good news for LSU at that point was that Cade Anderson and Anthony Ianson were yet to pitch. And the good news for LSU is those 2 guys went out there, as they have done time and time again, pitched brilliantly, and LSU won the final 2 games of that series. You know, Friday, I said, if you just put Thursday in the rearview mirror, push it aside, and don't worry about Saturday, if you just look at Friday's game, you're pitching a guy who is among the top pitchers in the SEC. What I said on Friday was I think that there are 15 other SEC teams playing. I think 14 would have taken Cade Anderson to start their games. Tennessee, probably okay with Liam Doyle doing that, but Cade Anderson was as good as anybody had in the SEC that was pitching on Friday. And he went out there, 6 2/3 innings, 9 strikeouts, only allowed 1 run, got LSU off to a phenomenal start, and LSU backed him up with a quality offensive game, 10 hits, scored 8 runs, got the long ball going a little bit. Finally, that's just hasn't been something LSU's done a lot of on the road. Jaron Jones hit a couple home runs, Ethan Fry with an opposite field blast, and LSU comfortably won an 8-1 game on Friday. And then you turn around and give Anthony Ianson the ball on Saturday, and I did not think Anthony Ianson had his best stuff on Saturday. Like, you look up, he's issuing some walks, he was falling behind, and he ended up walking 3 guys in the game and only struck out 5. And that's a guy that's been striking a ton of guys out. But he gritted and gutted and found a way to make the pitches he needed to get LSU through 7 innings of work. He had to throw 33 pitches in the second inning of that game and still was able to get through 7 when LSU's bullpen was a little bit compromised. I mean, you had already used Zach Cowan on Thursday for an extensive amount of pitches. You used Kason Evans for 27 pitches on Friday. And so did you have Newt available? Like, probably not. He threw 55 on Thursday. Shores had thrown 31, so you didn't know if he was going to be available. Turns out he got the last 2 outs of the game. But, like, your bullpen was a little bit compromised in that game, and Ianson gets you through 7 innings, and the offense did enough. Got 12 hits, scored 7 runs. Jones just absolutely sizzling. At that point, Jake Brown hit one to the moon. And LSU did what they needed to do, which is go to Columbia, South Carolina, and win 2 games in that series. Would you like 3? Yeah. But after you dropped that first one, you needed to get 2, and you got it. And you got it on the backs of Anderson and Ianson, as I've said. And I went back and looked at their statistics. And in their last 10 starts, those 2 guys over 10 starts, so that's 5 weeks of action, LSU is 8-2 in those games. And over those 10 games, those 2 pitchers have thrown 65 innings, only 49 hits, and 18 earned runs. That's a 2.49 ERA. So an ERA of 2.5, 102 strikeouts, and 24 walks for those 2. If you ask me to take those 2 or Skeens and Ty Floyd, I would take Skeens and Ty Floyd because I get Skeens in that equation, and he's the best pitcher I've ever seen at LSU. But as far as a 1-2 punch, each carrying their own weight, this may be the best I've seen at LSU late in the season. I mean, you look at Coleman and Renato, even though Coleman was kind of a reliever at times and then maybe started on Sunday, he was National Pitcher of the Year. Like, that's great and a little bit different because they weren't like the 1-2 at the top of the rotation, but those two guys were really, really good, obviously. You look at, the team that won it in 2023, I mentioned Skeens and Floyd. Last year, Holman and Jump. Of course, Poche and Lang had a good run for their 3 years pitching together. There was 1 year where Kevin Gausman was the ace as a sophomore, and Aaron Nola kind of emerged as the number 3 and the number 2 starter as a freshman. He wasn't quite Aaron Nola yet. He was good. He started the regional opener. He started this game in the Super Regional against Stony Brook. He was good, but he wasn't what he would become. Like I as far as my confidence level goes in two guys pitching, this is about as good as I can recall, and that's a huge, huge deal for LSU. And I think that you go into every weekend now really feeling like you've got an advantage on the mound. They've still got to figure some things out. I'll tell you this. One thing I really liked over the weekend, I thought Chase Shores and Jaden Newth both really threw the ball well. And I looked at Chase Shores. SEC hitters were over 300 against them through 8 weeks of SEC play. He's only allowed 8 hits in his last 10 1/3 innings. He's got 8 strikeouts and 3 walks over that time. It's not completely dominant, but it's tidier. There's a little bit more command. He's not getting squared up as much. And I think Jay Johnson's starting to really feel some confidence and some trust in him. I think you're going to see Chase Shores in high leverage situations moving forward. And then Jaden Newt's the other one that I talked about on Friday, but I think it's worth mentioning that as we talk pitching right here in this opening segment. There's nothing I don't like about what Jaden Newt's doing. He's throwing the ball 95 miles an hour. I love the splitter change that he's throwing that fades away from the left-handed hitters. He mixes a breaking ball in for enough for effect, and he throws a ton of strikes. So you've been searching and searching and searching all year for somebody to kind of step up beyond the big four. It's been Anderson, Ianson, Cowan, and Evans, and you're looking for 2-3 other guys to help get you through a weekend. And right now, I'm feeling pretty good about Chase Shores and Jaden Newt. There was a time there where it was Connor Benj and it was Connor Ware, and those two guys have kind of faded into the background a little bit. You thought maybe Gavin Guidry would come back. That ended up not happening. So you're still kind of searching. And I think those two guys are really good, in really good shape to give you some innings. I'm not saying that they're going to close games. I'm not saying that I want them to start games necessarily. But as far as getting outs over the course of a weekend, and I'll always say that, a regional, more so than a super is just kind of your standard deal, but a regional in Omaha, when you get into those brackets, they become a big collection of outs. And even if you're down 5 or up 5, like you still have to get those outs, and you need multiple guys to step up to do that. And if you think about some of LSU's trips to Omaha, and you think about some of the outings that you got from Nate Ackenhausen, and that you got from guys like Javen Coleman, that you got from Caleb Gilbert in 2017, where like that, not something that you had seen all year long, but you felt like you probably needed to have it. I mean, Griffin Herring as a freshman in 2023 pitched some really big time innings when LSU got into the losers bracket. So you need to build some depth on that roster, and I think LSU has done that, or is working towards doing that. But it certainly starts with Anderson and Ianson. Offensively for LSU, I think it was good to see a step down in pitching. You're just facing some really, really tough arms, and that's not an excuse, but it's certainly part of the discussion. You're just not going to light some of these SEC staffs up. Arkansas's got too many dudes with elite level stuff. So does Tennessee. You're just not going to light those guys up. But what happens when you take just a little bit of a step down in competition, like you will in a regional? The 3 teams that come to Baton Rouge for the regional will not be as talented as Arkansas, as Tennessee, as Texas A&M, even to an extent. Like, they're just not. That's not what regional 3 and 4 and 2 seeds look like. So I think South Carolina staff is more representative of that, what you may see from a potential like 3 seed in a regional. And I thought LSU showed up offensively. They hit the ball hard. They hit the ball over the fence. And they were able to manufacture a good amount of runs. Did it look like Auburn did against South Carolina? No. Did it look like Florida did against South Carolina? I was waiting for LSU to win one of these 16-3, and that just never happened. But I'm not going to complain too much when you look at the 3 games, and LSU scored 8 runs on 10 hits on sorry, that was on Friday. On Thursday, scored 5 runs on 11 hits, and then Saturday and Sunday, 8 runs on 10 hits, and then in the last game, 7 runs on 12 hits. Like that's a reasonable offensive effort when you consider that the long ball was very much in play. And 2 guys that was really nice to see get going on Friday and Saturday, basically, but more so on Saturday in the last game was Derek Curiel and Stephen Milam. Both guys have kind of had some struggles. Really, Milam has been all year in SEC play, and Curiel has just kind of been of late. And those 2 guys really swung it well. I've got these statistics that I wrote in Around the Horn for LouisianaSports.net. Through 29 league games, so entering Saturday, Milam was hitting exactly 200 in SEC play. He went 2 for 4 and hit the ball really hard into the outfield. Curiel was 4 for 33 over 8 games entering Saturday's game. That's a 121 average over 2 weeks, basically. And he got 3 really well-struck hits in Saturday's game. So LSU can hopefully get more from those guys. Your heavy lifting is going to need to be done by Jones and by Dickinson and by Fry. Those have kind of been your thumpers all year right there in the middle. But you got to have help 1 through 9 to be a championship caliber team. And I thought that seeing Curiel and Milam step forward on Saturday was probably a good thing. LSU can really take this week and do whatever it is that they want to do over the next 4 days before they get there and start playing in Hoover on Friday night. They'll be the last team of 16 teams to play. So they can take this time to kind of do whatever they want. They're going to do a scrimmage today, like an inter-squad with some live ABs. And then I think they'll travel on Wednesday to get ready for Friday's game. So I want to talk about where LSU is in the national seed race. I think a lot of you that are listening are aware of what happened on my Twitter over the weekend. If you're not, tune in. We're going to talk about it. I was really taken aback by the reaction to one of my tweets from Saturday. So I will talk about it. We'll discuss it. I'll talk about LSU's resume and where things stand when we come back.
The Hunt Palmer Show.
Genesis of Baton Rouge. GenesisofBatonRouge.com is that website. Every car that is on the lot is online at GenesisofBatonRouge.com. Every new purchase, 10-year, 100,000-mile warranty. That's as good as you're going to find in the industry. 10-year, 100,000-mile warranty. And every single purchase also comes with 3 years of complimentary maintenance. And that complimentary maintenance can be done valet, meaning you never have to really lift a finger. They come get your car, leave you with a loaner so you can get on about your day, take your car back to the dealership. They'll handle all your servicing, whether that's the oil change, tire rotation, air filter, wiper fluid, whatever the case may be. They'll handle your maintenance, bring it right on back to you. You don't have to spend your half your day sitting at the service aisle if you don't want to. It's the beauty of their service and the relationship that they have with their customers at Genesis of Baton Rouge. Go by and see them, Airline at Pico across from Women's Hospital. It's Genesis of Baton Rouge. Find them online, GenesisofBatonRouge.com.
You're listening to The Hunt Palmer Show, brought to you by Gulf Coast Office Products.
Monday show is brought to you by Gulf Coast Office Products. All your printing, scanning, copying needs, Gulf Coast Office Products. Find them online, gcopnet.com. Shout out to Trey Beal and the team at Gulf Coast Office Products. Just phenomenal folks that can absolutely help you no matter what vertical market that you are in. Gulf Coast Office Products understands what your needs are, printing, scanning, copying perspective, and they can help you out. They can help the bottom line. No matter if you're in law, medicine, whether you're in education, media company like us, Gulf Coast has got clients in your field and they know what you need to know. So contact our guy, Trey Beal, gcopnet.com. Do business with those folks here in the great state of Louisiana. All right, Beck, fire up the old mic over there.
Okay.
I don't have, comparatively speaking, with like Matt or T-Bob, Jake, I don't have a very big Twitter following.
Yeah, how many followers do you have, Hunt? Do you know?
Almost 15,000.
That's not bad.
So as I scroll through my timeline, there's an impressions thing on all the tweets that shows how many people have interacted with it, seen the tweets. And so I'll just go in order, like 2,000 on a game story, right under 1,000 on a different game story. And looking at LSU's SEC tournament path, that got almost 4,000 impressions. And I sent a tweet out on Saturday that got 97,000 impressions. So it just went haywire. And this is what the tweet said. Things change rapidly and will over the next week, but I'm not convinced LSU is a slam dunk top 8 right now. I feel good about it, but I don't think it's done. What does that tweet say to you, Jacob?
It says that you feel very good about where LSU's at. However, you are not going to vehemently say that LSU is 100% a top 8 seed right now.
Yeah. And so I thought that tweet was a pretty tepid step. Like, it's non-committal. It's like, I just don't know that it's over. And everyone just exploded. 97,000 impressions. It's all over Tiger droppings. I'm getting 102 reply tweets. I'm getting Twitter DMs from people with profanity in them.
Hunt,
it was unbelievable.
You almost got what they call, the kids call ratioed.
Yeah, I mean,
get more comments than likes.
Just because I said I'd like to have a little more information. I basically said, I think LSU's in good shape, but we'll see over the next few days. And that was apparently the most scorching clickbait tweet that ever happened. I was stunned by the response. And then they started a Tiger droppings thread that suggested that I said LSU wasn't a top 8, which never happened. It just completely made up out of thin air. I said I felt good about LSU being a top 8. And then to play a little devil's advocate with everyone who said I was just an idiot, I listed 8 teams in what could be a potential point in their favor over LSU. And that was all the exercise was. That's what we do this time of year. You just compare resumes, and there's a discourse. And man, people just did not like that at all. So today I wrote about where I think LSU stands as far as the selection committee goes, and I think LSU's in a really good spot. The D1 baseball team, they put their rankings together and put a projection out last night that had LSU at 7. I think that's a little bit lower than where I'd have them. I would probably have them in the 5 to 7 range. But all I was saying was I wouldn't feel great if LSU lost to Texas A&M on Friday, which their RPI is in the 50s. Potentially that could drop LSU's RPI to like 9 or 10. And then if Florida State swept through the ACC tournament or Oregon swept through the Big Ten tournament, and then all of a sudden there could be a discussion. Like, I think Oregon State's resume stinks, quite frankly. I have a little bit of sympathy for them on the whole because their conference disintegrated and they had to go do this thing on their own, and that's really difficult to do. But I'm looking at a team in Oregon State right now that has the strength of schedule at 39. They have 10 Quadrant 1 wins, and this is the sicko in me that looks at this probably closer than I should have. They have 3 Quadrant 1 wins over Hawaii because they were on the road, and Hawaii is exactly 60th in the RPI. So if Hawaii loses a game this week and falls one spot from 60 to 61, that will take 3 top Quadrant 1 wins away from Oregon State, and they will be sitting there at 7 and 8 in Quad 1, which I don't think is a national seed type deal, and I don't think their body of work stands up to LSU at all. They got swept in 4 games by Oregon. Like, I don't like Oregon State's resume at all, personally, but they're 6th in the RPI, and we do know that the committee likes to look at RPI. Another data point that I was bombarded with constantly on Twitter was the fact that LSU is ranked number 1 and won a series. How could they fall from 1 to 9? Well, that's not a data point. Being ranked by Kendall Rogers and Aaron Fitt isn't on the team sheet. Like, it's just not. So it's irrelevant. Like, you can take it or leave it. It doesn't hold any weight. Your resume is the weight. And LSU has a good resume, and I think it's a resume that would net probably like the 6th seed right now. But with a week's left of baseball to go, I'm just looking at this going, I can concoct a scenario where number 1 RPI Georgia gets a top 8, and number 2 RPI Auburn, who has 15 Quad 1 wins to your 13, gets a top 8. And RPI 3 Vanderbilt, who has 15 Quad 1 wins and did not play Auburn or South Carolina. Their strength of schedule is 2nd. Texas won the league. They're going to get a top 8. Arkansas has 20 league wins and a 5 RPI. Like, that's a top 8. North Carolina is roundly considered a top 8 right now. And then if I go to Oregon State and then potentially Oregon is 9-1 against Quad 1. And if they go win the Big Ten tournament, and have that data point, and their RPI goes from 12 this week to up to 8 or 9, and LSU loses on Friday and their RPI dips to 9, like, all I'm saying is, like, it could be a discussion. My broader point was that I think LSU's in really good shape, and I think they've done enough. But somehow, some way, my saying I'd like to see a little bit more turned into a far hotter take than, nope, it's over, slam the book, it's done. Like, that wasn't the hot take. Mine was, can we just, like, see? That was the hot take.
Yeah.
It absolutely broke my brain.
Well,
I couldn't believe it.
Hunt, you have to understand that there are going to be so many people on Twitter. They're going to read the first sentence, and they're not going to read the whole thing. They're going to see the first thing you say, and then they're just going to immediately, that's what they're going to take away from it.
And it's like, there were so many, like, layers to this that were so amusing to me. But and then I got accused of clickbait. I don't make any money if people read my tweets. Like, that, how am I benefiting from that?
You're not.
It's like, the whole thing just did not make any sense on any level to me. And it was consistent for 2 days. Literally getting DMs on Twitter with profanity in them for that tweet. Like, I didn't lose any sleep over it, but it didn't become any less wild to me. Here's the deal. Like, I think LSU is in good shape. I'm going to pull against Oregon this week. I'm going to pull against Hawaii this week. And, of course, it always helps if LSU wins a game. But I think the thing that we have to consider with LSU, their non-conference was a disaster from a resume perspective. You played a bunch of really bad teams in the pre-conference. And your in-conference strength of schedule was very light. You got to play Missouri. You got to play South Carolina. You got to play Mississippi State. If you look at the top teams in the RPI, you did not play Georgia. You did not play Vanderbilt, and then you got swept by Auburn, and you lost 2 or 3 to Texas. That's the top 4 in the RPI. So yeah, the series win against Alabama is good. The series win against Arkansas is great. 19 SEC wins is very good. Your winning percentage in Quadrant 1 is very good. You're 13-10. Those 13 wins are good. There's a lot of good on that resume, and I think LSU is just fine right now. But we've seen wild things happen over the course of the last 7 days. I mean, how many times did a Paul Mainieri team have its seeding changed over the course of time? Now, sometimes it doesn't matter. What Ole Miss and Mississippi State did in Hoover 4 and 3 years ago didn't end up mattering. And maybe what LSU does in Hoover this week or what Oregon does in the Big Ten tournament isn't going to matter. But the fact of the matter is, like, I just wanted to see the discussion. And, like, I'm not vindicated because Kendall and Aaron and Mark Etheridge put LSU on the 7 line yesterday. Like, they're not the committee. So that doesn't matter. And we're never going to get the actual information, whether I was right or wrong, unless LSU falls out of the top 7. I looked at the metrics. I looked at the numbers, which I feel like, and this is projecting, this is painting with the broad brush, and this may not be fair. But I would suggest that I probably looked at the numbers more closely than most of the people who just claimed it's over, lock. Number 1 team, 19 SEC wins, won 7 of 10 league series, LSU's a lock. Like, I probably looked at the numbers a little bit more closely, and I think I offered a reasonable take and a reasonable opinion, but that was certainly not popular on the Twitter or message board streets. And for that, I could not. I was dumbfounded. My kid had like 30 people at my house yesterday for Keller's graduation, and I'm sitting there like posting a few things on Tiger Droppings, just trying to straighten out the discourse because some stuff that was just being said was just incorrect. But we'll see. LSU, I think, again, is in a good spot, but we'll see how. I'm going to monitor this every day, and there will be outcomes every single day starting tomorrow that impact LSU one way or another. And we'll keep you posted on it. I'm going to continue to write about it over on LouisianaSports.net. And we'll see when Selection Monday rolls around. Right now, I would put LSU's chances of being in a national seed at somewhere in the neighborhood of 95%. I really feel good about it, but I can't get past that extra 5 with some of the stuff that's in the numbers. So that's kind of where I stand. Where do you stand, Beck? Do you feel like LSU is slam dunk here?
I think they are. I think I can understand your position, why you would say that you're 95%. I feel pretty good about it just because I mean,
I'm dismissing Coastal Carolina here, who theoretically could win the Sun Belt tournament, but they're 4-5 in Q1.
Yeah.
And for me, that just doesn't stand up. Their RPI is pretty good at 11. They've won a ton of baseball games. Their record's 44-11. In fact, I think they lead the country in wins. They do. So they've won a lot of games. They're 26-4 in the Sun Belt. That's awesome. They're a host. I don't think they're a top 8. I think that the top 8 Steelers for me could be Florida State, who's sitting there at 14 in the RPI if they go win the ACC tournament, although I don't think they would get there. It's Oregon State, whose resume I don't like. Personally, I don't think they've stood up well at all against the best teams in the country. They haven't really even played them, and they got one chance against Oregon and lost all 4 games. And then you're talking about Oregon as well. So those are kind of the ones that you're looking at to steal.
Yeah.
But look, I think LSU's going to throw Cade Anderson on Friday, so I think LSU's going to be fine.
Yeah. They don't have. I mean, here's my thing: is that will there be a difference in how LSU is viewed, whether or not they either, let's just say they lose their first game, they're out, or they make it to the championship game and lose? Like, is there going to be any? I don't even know if that would affect where they stand really.
Yeah. Look, it's like I talked about like last week. This week is so crazy. There's so many games, and the RPI just starts yo-yoing back and forth. And like the fact that Hawaii's game on Wednesday could potentially impact LSU because of what it would do to Oregon State's resume is just a small piece of how many moving parts there really are. All LSU can control is what they do starting on Friday and how they handle that. And Jay Johnson's got a decision to make based on how much he wants to use his 2 workhorses this weekend. I was going to kind of say this for the end of the week, but like I would probably throw Cade Anderson and Anthony Ianson 50 pitches on Friday. That's probably what I would do. And then you would have them both on the same rest for the following Friday. You could use whichever one you'd like. You don't overwork them. I don't feel bad with Ianson going from Saturday to Friday if he's only going to throw 50 pitches. That's what I would do. I don't think he'll do that. But I would be sure they got on the mound, got a little bit of action, and then got out before they were overworked, and then let the rest of your team do whatever it is they'd like to do the rest of the way. But there's just a lot of volatility in college baseball this time of year with these numbers, and it's a beauty pageant. That's what it is when it comes down to Monday. LSU's in a good spot, but we'll see how all that shakes out, and we'll update you every single day as we move forward. All right, let's take a time out, come back with a little bit more. It's the Hunt Palmer Show.
The Hunt Palmer Show. This is the Hunt Palmer Show, brought to you by Gulf Coast Office Products.
It was a interesting weekend in the Southeastern Conference for baseball. I thought a really statement win for Arkansas over Tennessee, who's just gone into free fall. I think they lost 5 of their last 6 SEC series. That's hard to do with Liam Doyle on your team. Like he is so good. They're really talented. They just can't win a series, and their schedule is really difficult. Like it's hard to go to Baton Rouge and win. It's hard to go to Fayetteville and win. Vanderbilt's playing really good baseball, and then they got annihilated by Texas A&M in one day in both ends of a doubleheader. But that's still a dangerous team, and is likely going to be a dangerous 2 seed wherever they end up traveling, assuming they don't win the SEC tournament and flip that. But Arkansas looked very good, swung the bats great as they usually do, and so that furthered how good LSU's series win was over the Hogs the week prior. So I thought that was an interesting one. Florida continues to stay hot. They win 2 games over Alabama in Gainesville, and they are now threatening to host. Their RPI is good enough. They got to 15 league wins, and if they go to Hoover and play well, they could potentially play their way to a host. I don't think they're there now, and you can't completely dismiss the start of SEC play where they started 1-11, but to finish the way they did was incredible. Missouri, I think it's safe to say, turned into a pumpkin. They made Missouri somehow this weekend made the previous weekend when they went and swept Texas A&M in College Station even look more improbable by what they did over the weekend against Mississippi State. Every time I looked up on Twitter, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Mississippi State was hitting another home run. I mean, they just annihilated Missouri for 3 straight days. And A&M got 2 hits in the second game and the third game of that series. I have no idea how that happened. Missouri played the exact same brand of baseball for 9 of the 10 SEC weekends, and then one weekend, a complete and total outlier, destroyed Texas A&M's entire season and may have gotten a coach fired. Like, they could play that weekend 100 more times, and I don't think Missouri sweeps it a single other time. It's crazy that happened the way that it did. But Mississippi State also gets to 15 league wins. They did fire their coach and are going to be in the NCAA tournament, traveling somewhere. And I think this will be an opportunity for Justin Parker to kind of audition for his next gig. They're not going to hire Mississippi State, but somebody may want to look at him because he's got those guys playing significantly better than they were at any point in the year before Chris Lemonis got fired. So big sweep there for Mississippi State. They are officially in the NCAA tournament. Ole Miss over the weekend takes 2 out of 3 from Auburn. The Rebs are still not a host to me, but they're hovering. And that was a really good series win for them to get that. Ike Irish continues to hit everything in sight for Auburn. He could potentially have wrestled SEC Player of the Year away from Wahiba Aloy, but he was not good enough to win 2 games over the weekend. Ole Miss does that and takes 2 out of 3 from Auburn. The really, really disheartening thing as I was watching as an LSU fan and trying to see how everything was going to affect LSU over the weekend, you would have liked to see Vanderbilt take a couple of losses because Vanderbilt's RPI is really good. Their strength of schedule is really good. And one of the things LSU had going for them against Vanderbilt since they didn't play was that LSU's league record was better. And Vanderbilt was on the ropes in all 3 games over the weekend. On Thursday and Friday, they hit walk-off home runs from behind, not tied and homered. They were losing and hit walk-off home runs on Thursday and Friday, and they were losing 3-0 in the 6th inning of the game on Saturday against Kentucky, and they won that game too. So they came back and won all 3 games from a spot where they were not looking very good. And you're looking at Kentucky like they're teetering. They needed to get a game, and they lost all 3 of them. And now Kentucky's sitting there at 13 and 17 in league play with a 36 RPI, and that's bubblicious at this point. If they could have gotten 2 games in Nashville, it would have been a slam dunk. They probably get 1 game in Nashville, then it's a slam dunk, and they couldn't get that done. So that was that one I was looking for LSU. I'm trying to knock just one team like out of the top 8 to make LSU's spot a little bit safer and more comfortable in my eye. And Vanderbilt was one of those teams that I thought you could have knocked out of there. And if they get swept by Kentucky, absolutely that they could have backed up. But now they sweep the series. They got 15 quadrant 1 wins. That's 2 more than LSU. They've got a better RPI than LSU. They tied in the league standings, and LSU got to play Missouri and South Carolina. So Vanderbilt, with a 2 strength of schedule, has just a really, really good resume, and one that I think is better than LSU's at this point. And I was hoping that Coach Mingione, my good buddy, was gonna get that win, get a win in Nashville, and it just never quite materialized there for them. Texas gets back on track, and the big development for Texas over the weekend when they went to Norman and won. Max Ballou did come back in the lineup. He was last year's Big 12 Player of the Year. He's missed a little over a month with an injury. He's back and hit a home run. So Texas is closer to full strength, still without their ace, Jared Spencer, who won't be back. And Ruger Riojas, who's their ace, got knocked around for the 3rd straight week in that series against Oklahoma. But Texas is very likely the number 1 overall seed, even though their RPI is 4, because they won the SEC by 2 games. They were 22-8 in SEC play. Arkansas finished in 2nd at 20-10. LSU and Vanderbilt right there tied for 3rd at 19-11. LSU gets that tiebreaker over Vanderbilt due to record against common opponents. LSU had a 1-game better record against the teams that LSU and Vanderbilt played. So the Tigers are the 3 seed and will be the last team to take the field. In Hoover won't be until Friday night. So that's a look around the Southeastern Conference from this weekend. Nothing super impactful for LSU. But the Tigers were able to hold serve and beat South Carolina 2 of 3. All right, let's step aside. We'll close out hour number 1 when we come back. Chat with Dr. Jeremy Burnham from Auctioner. That's next.
The Hunt Palmer Show.
Highland Insurance Group, HighlandIG.com is that website. Look, Jonathan Carver and his team, just phenomenal folks to work with. I know insurance is not the most fun thing to talk about, but it can be vitally important because when something happens that you can't plan for, whether it's a hurricane, whether it's a cyber attack, whether it's a lawsuit, a car accident, it could compromise your business financially if you're not properly insured. If you're a business owner and the only thing that you pay attention to when that insurance renewal comes around is the premium, that's one thing that's very important, but what does that policy actually say? What does it respond to? Do you know about co-insurance penalties? Do you know about your building valuations? What's your business interruption limit? All those things could be huge, huge, huge deals. And you want to make sure that you've got an agent you can trust. And at the Highland Insurance Group, you certainly can trust them. They are experts from a technical perspective, and they can audit your policy for free to just see if you've got the proper insurance. They can certainly be there to help you through it. It's HighlandIG.com. It's the Highland Insurance Group online, HighlandIG.com.
You're listening to The Hunt Palmer Show, brought to you by Gulf Coast Office Products.
Up hour number one here. Hour number two will be busy. Bo Bentley, if you don't know the name, big-time quarterback prospect, plans to visit LSU and Oklahoma. We'll talk about that in hour number two. Derek Carr apparently made some phone calls to other teams around the NFL before he decided to retire. We'll discuss that. And then Connor O'Gara from Saturday Down South will be with us at 2:30. He thinks LSU may be his national championship pick for this coming fall.
I have to interrupt you because
please do.
You mentioned that thing about Derek Carr. I didn't see anything about that. But I'm not even lying when I tell you I literally had a dream that Derek Carr, like it was just some day, it was a random day after he had said he retired, and it was like, oh, Derek Carr has come out of retirement and signed with, I don't remember what team it was, but I was like, oh, this is just incredible. So
you're very gifted, Beck. You've got that foresight, that vision. It's truly unbelievable. We're blessed to have you here so you can share that kind of stuff with us. It's time for Sports Health, presented by Ochsner Andrews Orthopedics and Sports Medicine Institute. Every couple of weeks, we chat with Dr. Jeremy Burnham. He's the medical director of sports medicine and a section head of orthopedic surgery over at Ochsner. Joins us now on the Jim's Firearms Hotline. Dr. Burnham, how are you?
Hey, good afternoon. Doing great.
I wanted to chat with you briefly about the biggest injury in the sports world last week, which was Jason Tatum of the Celtics with that ruptured Achilles, something we've seen the LSU's football team as well. Just a devastating injury that takes a lot of time, I know, to recover from. Is in your experience, as far as the timetable goes there, and then what is compromised as you try to come back from that when you have that serious injury?
Yeah, like you said, unfortunately, this injury is more common than we'd like it to be. The Achilles tendon is a very, very important tendon, obviously, for sports, and it connects the calf to the heel bone and is really important in explosiveness. And so when you're talking about basketball, jumping, running, change of direction, those types of things, the Achilles is crucial. I did think that it was interesting from this standpoint. He was able to actually get surgery within 24 hours of the injury, and that's really, really uncommon. Usually you have a 2 to 3 week window to be able to do that, but there's a thought process that the earlier that you can get to these, the better, because the body is just starting to ramp up some of the healing cells and the biologic factors that may be of use after surgery. So I think that's encouraging for sure is how quickly he was able to get treated.
I know that we're not speaking specifically about cases, but Jacobian Guillory dealt with this for LSU football in September of last year. Obviously, he missed the rest of the season, and he basically sat out all of spring. He did participate towards the end in some light things. Would you imagine just in general, not with Jacobian specifically, but in general, do you think that he should be able to go through like some running stuff this summer and should be relatively full strength by the fall?
Yeah, everything is a progression after injuries of these. So, like, when we talk about Achilles injuries, we generally think about a 10 to 12-month timeline before people are able to, what we'd say, fully recover or come back and play high-level sports. And it differs a little bit according to sport and according to position. But what it's easy to forget is that, there's actually a progression going all through that. And so athletes are going to start running, doing straightforward running, easy jogging much earlier than that 10 to 12 months. Then they start doing some change in direction, some kind of fundamental athletic type movements, then more sports-specific movements, and then ultimately get to that point where they've done all of those things with their therapist, with their strength coach, and their sports medicine team. And then when they're fully cleared, the goal at that 10 to 12 month mark is they've already done all of the type of sport or athletic movements that you need them to do, so everybody feels comfortable about them doing that. And so I think that timeline is definitely reasonable.
Every time we chat, we want to get the latest over there at Elite. I know you've got an orthopedic walk-in clinic over there. Can you catch us up on the latest?
Yeah, we do. One of the things that we've really worked hard to do over the last year is really open up access to patients when they need it and where they need it. So we try to meet our patients where they are. We have several locations, but specifically at Elite at the corner of Burbank and Lee, we have an orthopedic walk-in clinic. And what that means is that if you have an injury or even, an ache or pain that's been going on for a while that you just haven't been able to get in and get seen, you don't have to have an appointment to come to this clinic. And so Monday through Friday during the day, you can actually show up at Elite at the corner of Burbank and Lee with any type of orthopedic issue and be seen. And then we're also open on Saturdays and Sundays as well. And, just like in the instance of this Achilles injury, he was injured that evening. He was in New York when this happened, and that happens to be where one of the premier foot and ankle surgeons is. He was seen that evening, had surgery the next morning. We're trying to provide that same level of care and that timeliness to all of our patients. When you get injured, you don't a lot of times want to wait a week or 2 weeks to get in and get seen and get a diagnosis. And we're trying to make it very accessible where you can come in and get that answer right away.
We certainly appreciate the discussion. We'll talk in a couple of weeks. Dr. Burnham, thank you, sir.
Great talking to you. Thanks.
Dr. Jeremy Burnham with Ochsner at Ochsner Andrews Sports Medicine Institute. We know that sports injuries can be unpredictable, but one situation you can protect yourself from is muscle cramping. That heat is here. It's going to be here basically through October. One of the first things you can do to avoid aid in recovery, to avoid muscle cramping, is to stretch prior to and at the end of your activity. If you're not drinking enough fluids, that can also lead to muscle cramps, so be sure to stay hydrated. To learn more about sports injury prevention and treatment, visit ochsner.org/BRortho. Always appreciate the discussions there with Dr. Jeremy Burnham. As far as Jacoby and Guillory goes, and look, there's some I don't mean to specifically speak to each situation because Dr. Burnham's not dealing with all these. He doesn't have all the information. I don't want to put him on the spot. We like to talk in like generalities with him. But Guillory was able to put pads on and do some like non-contact. He wasn't in the 11-on-11 periods, but he had pads on at the end of spring and was able to go out there and do some light drill work, some cone work, some bag work with the sleds and whatnot with Kyle Williams. So that to me seems like an awesome sign. I've said this a lot, and I think that my opinion is shared by most of the media that were out at fall camp this past August. Like Guillory really looked good. He had a really, really good August, and I think he was going to be a real key to what they wanted to do on a defensive line that was short on dudes. And his injury hurt. You forced Ahmad Breaux to play more quickly than he probably would have. Dominic McKinley got more snaps than he probably would have. Gio Paez was playing a lot kind of on the edge and was asked to go down and play tackle again. You had to shuffle the deck a little bit when Guillory went down. They didn't have anybody that was really his type of player. And I think to get him back and to get him healthy is a real plus for LSU. And so hopefully he can have a full summer of workouts and is absolutely cleared to be 100% come August 1 when they go out there to start practicing and getting ready for Clemson. So I think that Guillory's not going to be a guy that makes 94 tackles for this LSU team. He's not going to be a guy that makes 74 tackles, I don't think. But he can be a force in the middle of the defensive line. He's so strong, so powerful. He's a sixth-year player. Been in the college weight room a long time. So he's a guy that you have to account for because he's so strong and he can be disruptive with his strength and his leverage. So I think that's a big add. And again, he and Jason Tatum are not completely similar. They play different sports and have very different body types. But hopefully Guillory has some of that explosiveness. That strength is still there, and he's able to give LSU a lot of really good snaps this coming fall because that injury was one that hurt LSU last year for certain. So we appreciate Dr. Burnham for coming on and giving us a little bit of time here on this Monday. That's fast moving first hour here. I talked to LSU South Carolina at the top of the hour. I talked about LSU from a resume perspective at 1:15, and then we dove into the rest of the SEC at 1:30. A lot of baseball talk in the first hour. We won't do as much baseball in hour number 2, but if you missed some of that baseball talk and want to go back and catch it, you certainly can on demand wherever it is that you find your sound. Just search Hunt Palmer Show show, whether that's on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google, or on YouTube. Our full shows are archived every single day. And you can check it out there. If you're looking for LSU football content, hunt on LSU. If you're looking for Saints football content, hunt on Saints. Subscribe to those channels. We certainly appreciate y'all for doing that each and every day. We've got a lot to do in hour number 2 as well. Bo Bentley is not a name I was super familiar with a couple of months ago. Certainly am now. We're going to talk about him at the top of the hour. He's kind of picked his final 2. Big-time quarterback prospect looking at LSU and Oklahoma to this point. So we'll talk about him. Derek Carr potentially making some phone calls elsewhere before he decided to retire. That's really weird, and I'd like to talk about it. And then Connor O'Gara, Saturday Down South at 2:30. He's going to talk to us about his potential national championship pick being the LSU Tigers. And I don't think he's going to be completely alone on that. I feel like there's going to be a lot of positive buzz when we go to SEC Media Days in Atlanta coming up in July. I think he's going to be one of a few that have LSU, but we'll get Connor's sincere thoughts on that at 2:30. Very much looking forward to it. Hope your work week's off to a good start. Our Monday shows are brought to you by Gulf Coast Office Products. We will step aside, take a break for SportsCenter, get you caught up on national headlines. When we come back, let's talk some football. Bo Bentley, LSU going to get him? We will do that coming up next.
The Hunt Palmer Show.